right, let's do a transcript analysis. Basically, what goes behind the mind of an IELTS examiner who is listening to your speaking, okay? So this will be the response to part one video on what score would you give the candidate. Let's go in. So in this particular session, I have taken the liberty to actually print out and type out or basically transcribe in words what the conversation was between the examiner and the candidate. In this case, the candidate is Eureka, right? This is the timeline. This is what the examiner was saying, and this is what Eureka replies. So this is the short conversation that went on in part one, right, between Eureka and the examiner, right? So let's take a look at it. Maybe we can bring in the video at this point. So I want to refresh you back to the video.
Good afternoon. My name is Mike Kasem. Can you tell me your full name, please?
My name is Yurika Ito.
Thank you. And what shall I call you?
Please call me Yurika.
Now, in this first part, I'd like to ask you some questions about yourself. Let's talk about what you do. Do you work or are you a student?
I work.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a teacher.
So here is the word form. I think she did pretty fine. Well, what do you think? Right? She replies to the question. Her name, well, very simple. Anybody can do that. Please call me Eureka. Fine. She answers quite short and sweet. This is great, right? In this first part, you don't want to be elaborating too much, all right? So I work, I'm a teacher. That's great, okay? So she did pretty fine in this short introduction frame. So let me clear this. Let's go on to the next bit.
What do you find most interesting about your work?
To engage in the student learning is one of the biggest joy for me.
Which is more important to you, the people you work with or the work you do?
Both are very important to me.
Why?
Why? Because even I have a very good lesson content, if the students cannot engage in my lessons, there is no meaning. So I need a cooperation from the student side, but to get that cooperation from the students, I have to prepare a good lesson plan.
So here we heard Eureka's response to the examiner's question, right? What do you find the most interesting about your work? To engage in the students' learning. Okay, great. So far, so good. It's one of the biggest joy for me. I think she did pretty fine here, so we'll give her a check, right? Which is more important to you as the examiner, the worker or the people, right? She replied, both are very important to me. At this point, you notice that the examiner asks, is pushing, is probing for a question, right? The examiner asks why. Because it's a little short here, you should elaborate a little bit more, say a few more things, right? Say a few more things, which she did, and I think she did pretty well, right? She replies, why? Because even if I have very good content, I can't engage the students, there is no meaning, so I think cooperation from the student side is very important, but to get that cooperation from the students, I need to prepare a very good lesson. Here, I like to draw attention to something which I think is great. What Eureka did well here is that she used these course markers, right? So and but, okay, to connect her ideas. This is great. This is what an examiner is looking out for in terms of grammar, right? So pay attention to that when you join your sentences together. I would suggest that if you want, a tip from me would be here. Try to speak, okay, as far as possible, not all the time, but try to speak in full sentences. This is what you would need to do most of the time, all right? Then the examiner asked the question, what do you find most interesting about work? So let's move on to the next bit. What do you find most interesting about work? And she gave a rather short reply. She says, here I'm going to pull out my pen again. To engage the students' learning is one of the biggest joy for me. Okay, short and sweet. Right, great. We want to move out from this phase, all right, the introductory frame, right? and quickly get on. Basically, the examiner is really trying to get you to the next stage, all right, of part 1. Okay, in this stage is where the examiner will engage you in 2 additional questions. All right. So let's see what she did in the subsequent questions. So the examiner starts off with the first question. Okay. Here, let's go back and listen to what the examiner said.
Let's talk about tea and coffee. Do you prefer drinking tea or coffee?
Yeah, I love to have a tea.
Do you remember the first time you tried drinking tea?
I don't remember, but my mother told me that tea includes caffeine. So if I'm not mistaken, she didn't allow me to drink tea when I was a young children.
Do you ever give visitors to your home tea or coffee?
Yeah. If
Why?
the visitor come to my house, I serve tea to the guests.
Which is more popular in your country, tea or coffee?
I think in Japan, usually we serve green tea to the guests. This is a very traditional way to treat the guests in Japan.
Let's talk about holidays. Do you prefer to have one long holiday or maybe a few short breaks during the year?
I want to have a definitely long vacation once a year at least.
What was the best holiday you have ever had?
To visit the foreign countries, for example, the Thailand, Phuket, where I was completely relaxed to forget about everything.
Would you prefer a holiday at a beach or in the middle of a city?
Of course, as I already mentioned to you, I love to go to the Phuket, which means beach.
Why?
Because beach, I can see the ocean. Ocean is very big. I can forget about everything about the daily life, so I can be very relaxed at the beach.
What is your perfect holiday?
My perfect holiday is to take a long nap without getting distracted, to recharge my energy.
So some comments about it. What do you think about Eureka's presentation at this stage? All right, to the question, let's talk about tea or coffee. A rather common question, everyday sort of question, right? And Eureka replied, yeah, I love to. Now, I think this is fine, but the only issue that I have here is the tone that she used to speak with the word yeah. I think it'd be better if she said, yes, I love to have tea. Yeah, it's okay, it's casual, it's fine. But the way Eureka pronounces the word yeah sounds a little bit what I call sarcastic, all right? It has a very high pitch rising tone and it sounds a little bit like sarcasm, right? So you might want to be careful of that. Sarcasm means you speak in a manner as if the examiner doesn't know some basic information, and it sounds a little bit embarrassing for the examiner. So you might want to tone it down a little bit by saying maybe, yes, I love to have tea, or definitely, yes, I love tea very much, instead of, yeah, I love to have tea, right? Then the examiner goes on. Do you remember the first time you tried to try drinking tea? I don't remember. She did pretty okay here. But the issue that I have will be the grammar here, right? When I was very young child, when I was a missing a very young missing article here, a very young child, right? Instead of children, right? So this sort of little basic errors, the examiner will pick up on it, all right? And then the examiner starts thinking you're probably a 6 out of 9, right? Out of 9, you'll probably be a 6 here. So the examiner is not quite sure, right? because this is a rather basic error, right? I was a very young child then, right? And so be careful not to miss out articles like or the in front of your nouns, right? This is your noun, this is your adjective, right? This is an intensifier, and missing article So missing articles are a big thing with examiners, right? It tells the examiner that basic grammar is not there. So examiner would want to ask more questions, okay? So let's get on to the next bit and see what Eureka did. Do you ever give visitors to your home tea or coffee? And she said, she used the same rather sarcastic tone, yeah, because of the pitch. I think she might not have understood how to use the word yeah. So she said, yeah, as if it sounds more like in the English equivalent, like duh, you stupid. So she needs to be mindful of that, okay? So trying to be casual is great, but if you misuse it, the examiner starts to notice that you may not be an 8 or a 9, okay? So casual language needs to be used very intelligently and strategically, right? Which is more popular in your country, the examiner says. She goes on, I like the fact that she used this is what I call a filler. A filler are words like well, I see, right? These are great to give you time to formulate, to think about what you want to say. I think in Japan, yeah, usually we serve green tea to the guests, right? There's a very traditional way to treat the guests in Japan. I think she did pretty all right here, okay? No issue, she's not hesitating to make grammar, but she's hesitating a little bit just to formulate, searching for content. And that is perfectly fine here. All right. So let's see what she does next. Would you prefer? Here is a new question. This is the second additional question, right? And from this question, the examiner will start to ask other bits of question that follows the main question. So this is the main question, right? This is the second main question, right? Earlier on, we had a question about do you like coffee or tea? Now this is question 2, right? So in question 2, let's see how Eureka responds, right? She says, of course, as I've already mentioned to you, not a good idea to use this phrase, okay? Try to avoid using this phrase, not a good idea, right? Because it gives the idea that the examiner has not been paying attention to what you say. That's not a good thing. So I would avoid this as far as I can, all right? Next, I love to go to Phuket, which means the beach. And the beach here sounds kind of odd because she almost pronounced it like bitch, which is kind of funny, right? So be mindful when you pronounce your words. So means the beach. Well, she didn't really elaborate, right? Here, the examiner is trying to get you in the second and the first question, is trying to get you to speak more. So you don't want the examiner to always be asking you why, okay? And then she goes on, because beach, I can see the ocean. Ocean is very big. I can forget about everything about the daily life. So I can be relaxed at the beach. Great. All right, she did pretty okay here. So we'll give her a check here. Let's give her a star, right? Pretty all right. Is it okay if you start a sentence with because? Yes, please, by all means, you can start speaking with because or but, right? But in writing, in academic writing, you can't do that. So spoken English is very casual, right? So we're not looking at academic language at this portion here. We're looking at casual spoken English, all right? Then she goes on to explain why she likes a beach holiday, because she can relax herself. Again, I like the fact that she used connecting discourse markers. Words like this, right? So, since, although, because, right? Whereas, they connect ideas, and they're very important when you are always trying to answer why, okay? And then the next question goes on, my perfect holiday would be to take a long nap without getting distracted. Good use of vocabulary here. Here, the examiner starts thinking she's probably a 7, okay? to recharge my energy. She's probably a 7, and the examiner is moving her up to a 7-point mark on the band. Okay, again, the total is 9 points, right? So choice of vocabulary, lexical resource is very important. If you don't remember this, go back and revisit my earlier videos on how the examiner looks at your scoring overview. Okay, so let's clear this out. What we have looked at are very crucially make a quick answer. So you have quick answers, right? Quick answers to the interview questions. What's your name, right? What do you do? Are you a student? Are you working? Stuff like that. Those are very basic questions. Give quick answers here. Okay, do not elaborate too much. Then you get the question 1 being asked of you, right? With a few sub questions. Here you want to elaborate. So always try to answer your questions with a why, right? Explain as much as you can with a why, all right? But don't overdo it, okay? Then you get on to question number 2. And then again, when you answer, the examiner gives an explanation, right? It'd be a good strategy will be give an answer, give a point to the examiner, followed by explain your answer, right? And if you can, give an example as well, right? So that marks the end of part 1 analysis, all right? And I'll see you for part 2 analysis in the long term.